We are going to delve into an important topic on mental health, specifically focusing on bipolar disorder. Open conversations like the one we are going to have today are important for fostering understanding and support, for removing biases, stigmas, fears, and more. Our goal is to create a supportive environment all over the world where we can learn from each other and gain a deeper understanding of this condition. The goal is also to find breakthroughs in boosting emotional and psychological well being, enabling life to be lived fully and completely. I am Anu Chadda from India, and I'll be hosting this very special event. In my professional life, I've been a businesswoman. However, matters which affect people are a part of my being, and this makes me feel purposeful. I'm not training under the framework of International Coaching Federation to be a life coach with deeper significance to wellness. Statistics from the Global National Mental Health Survey indicate that the worldwide prevalence of bipolar is around 1%. In India, statistics show that 1 in 150 people live with bipolar disorder, with 70% of them remaining untreated due to stigma. However, it's encouraging to note that mental disorders carry less stigma than they used to, as more public figures, including celebrities, politicians, and even military personnel, have spoken openly about their struggles with mental illness. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a military personnel. His name is Gregg Martin, and he's affectionately known as the Bipolar General. Gregg served in the army and didn't realize he was suffering from this genetic strain until later in life. He's the author of the book Bipolar General. We'll share with you more about the book, and he'll be sharing his insights. What are some of the early warning signs or symptoms of a person who is suffering from bipolar disorder?
The early warning symptoms are first on the manic side, excessive energy, no need for sleep, continuous flow of new ideas, extreme religiosity. On the depression side, when a person loses energy,
These early warning signs, Greg, it's crucial for individuals and their loved ones, their carers, their caretakers, to recognize these signs early on to seek proper support and intervention, as Greg just mentioned. Another question would be, are there specific triggers you have identified as effective in handling mood swings?
first, they have to have the genetic predisposition for bipolar disorder. And you're generally, you're born with that, or you're not born with it. And so once you have the genetic predisposition, if it then is triggered by a traumatic event, extreme pressure, some kind of a terrible incident that is shocking and really disrupts the person's life, that event can then trigger the genetic predisposition, and then the person has an onset of bipolar disorder.
Having a constructive internal dialogue, which you did with yourself and approach the medical help, and these challenging moments can indeed be very empowering, and it can help maintain some stability and a happier future because you're already on top of the situation and you're understanding if you're going to a for medical care.
The message I would give is go seek help from a medical professional, because if you have bipolar disorder or some other mental illness and you don't get help, you're heading down a path of destruction. It's a good chance it'll ruin your marriage, your family, your career. It'll often lead to homelessness, addictions, incarceration, and death, and oftentimes death by suicide, because people with bipolar disorder are 40 times more likely to die by suicide than those without. So go get help. And if you get help, there's a very good chance that you can live a happy, healthy, purposeful life. And the thing that stops people from getting help is primarily the stigma. And the stigma is based on ignorance and fear. And so it really, stigma should go away. It's a form of discrimination, of prejudice, that with
Yeah.
no basis in science. So having bipolar disorder or another mental illness is very analogous to having diabetes or cancer or heart disease. And there's no stigma surrounding those illnesses. So neither should there be any surrounding mental illness or bipolar disorder.
Yeah. We'll talk more about the stigma. Well, for the moment, I can say is that this your message of hope and resilience is very inspiring, and it's essential for those facing similar struggles to know that they're not alone, that they have a family to support them, and that there's always hope for recovery and a fulfilling life, like you said. Seek help. Go ahead. Seek help. Don't hide it. How do you manage your daily challenges which come from being in this condition, bipolar?
So once a person has bipolar disorder, they have it for life. It doesn't go away. It needs to be managed through medication. So I take lithium and other medication, which balances my brain chemistry. Second, I get therapy from a psychotherapist who helps me manage the issues in my life. And my wife is Maggie is very involved in that. Third is healthful living. So, healthy diet, plenty of exercise, plenty of sleep, and so forth. The recovery must be anchored into what I call the 5 P. First P is purpose. Everybody must develop a purpose or a mission for their life. Second, people. You need to develop a network of happy, fun, energetic people that lift your spirits. Third is place. It's really important to live in a place that you love living, that enables you to fulfill your dreams and be happy. Fourth is perseverance, because recovering from bipolar disorder and other mental illness is very, very hard. It's difficult, it's challenging. So the person has to develop the will to win, to never quit, to keep fighting, to get better and have hope. And then fifth is what I call perspective. It's the ability to objectively get outside of one's own mind, one's own head, and think about your own thinking. And that's called metacognition. So this idea of perspective and thinking objectively about our thinking is really important. So that's kind of how I manage my life. And I try to stay really upbeat, have an attitude of gratitude, be thankful for my blessings, my family, my wife, the fact that I'm living in sunny Florida, and just make the most of it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And after hearing this, I must say I deeply bow down to your wife. Your strategies for managing the daily challenges are very practical, very insightful, and I can see that the 5 Ps which you've spoken about just tell me that they're so well integrated into your being. All people who are going through such a condition would actually make that as a mantra. And what advice would you give to someone in a similar situation?
Well, when I was in a depression, I was withdrawn. I didn't have any energy. I was really disinterested in everything. I just wanted to be by myself. That was a real barrier because it kept me from really interacting with my family and my friends. When I was manic, I was thinking so fast. My mind was just racing all the time with new ideas. And I became very aggressive and pushy and impatient and wanted people to change. Now, moving forward, I went through this intense bipolar period, and then I went through bipolar hell, 2 years of depression, psychosis, suicidality. And then I got the right medication, lithium, and I've been on a journey of recovery for 8 years. And so today, to bring it up to date, the things that I have to watch out for today are being agitated, which makes me angry and can turn me into rage. On the other end of that is I could get triggered into a happy mania through too much of a good thing. So if we start singing karaoke too much and dancing too much, and I'm having too much fun and I get too happy, that could spin me off into a happy manic state, as opposed to the angry side that I just described. And so I've got to monitor my moods carefully and be aware of where I'm at. If I feel agitation coming or if I feel like I'm getting too high, I have to say, okay, stop. This is not good. I need to modify my behavior, talk to Maggie, talk to a therapist, talk to a doctor, and get things back in balance.
It's also very important that as you're suffering through this, you become a little mindful, know your trigger points, and that's very important. I totally agree with you. At the same time, I feel, that a very effective communication with the healthcare provider is invaluable. What type of therapies are effective for managing bipolar?
I think cognitive behavioral therapy is very important, CBT, which is also known as talk therapy, where you essentially, talk and think and reason your way out of being in a bad place. A lot of our problems, again, it goes back to the five P's and perspective, are that we make things worse than they really are. So cognitive behavioral therapy helps you to put things in perspective, that it's not the end of the world, that that there is hope, that things are okay. So that is very, very important. But other forms of therapy, I would call taking medication a form of therapy. And that's really important because, as we know, with bipolar disorder, it's that the brain is functioning in a way that drives us into mania and depression. And the medications can balance that out and be very, very helpful. So I'd say that's an important form of therapy. Some other ones that have been tried, I was in an inpatient at a veterans hospital for a month and a half, and they tried electroconvulsive therapy or electric shock therapy into my brain. I did 14 rounds of that. And for some people, it's very successful. It really helps lift them out of depression. For me, it didn't work. But I tried it because the doctors thought it was worth it, giving it a try. There's another kind of therapy called transcranial magnetic therapy, which uses magnets to go into the brain and alter it to help break people out of depression. That's another one. I never did that. Um, so those are some of the main therapies. And again, I talked about healthy living. I mean, a really good form of therapy is exercise. Exercising vigorously, every day, even if it's just a fast walk. Get out and get moving, get the muscles going, get the blood flowing, get the oxygen into your body. That's really good for your brain and for countering any kind of mental illness. And then we talked about diet, how important that is, healthy diet. And, there's really some good stuff written on what types of food are best for someone with a bipolar brain. And then I think lastly, I would say sleep. Sleep, now the scientists and doctors know, is one of the absolute most important components of therapy and recovery and staying healthy. And so the magic number is to get about 8 hours per night. And if you can get a nap in the afternoon, that's really healthy too, because the body and the brain, they recover and, cleanse themselves and, get healthier during time of sleep.
More insights into the effective therapy options which you have just spoken about for this disorder are very, very informative, Greg. It underscores the importance of certain personal treatment plans you build for yourself and find approaches that best work for you. What role does medication play in managing bipolar disorder, and how do you ensure consistency in taking the prescribed medications? And what about the side effects?
So for me and many others, medication is really key. It's almost foundational to being stable and then having a journey of recovery from bipolar disorder. What lithium did for me is it stabilized my brain. It created a sort of a ceiling so that my brain couldn't go into mania. It would bump into the ceiling and stay within a healthy bound. And then it would be like a floor against depression. So if my brain decided it wants to go into depression, it would start going down, but it would hit the floor and not go deep into depression. So basically, the lithium and a couple other medications kept my brain in a healthy zone of balance between, not too high, not too low. So that was really important. Now, taking the medications every day, once in the morning, once in the evening, will help keep me stable, balanced, happy on the road to recovery. So I think it's really the fear that never want to go back into a terrible state of bipolar disorder that motivates me. And then the hope that if I take this, I'm going to be happy, healthy, and purposeful, and I can have a really good life. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. I don't want to go back into a terrible state. That's the fear. And I have the hope that I will live a really good, happy, healthy life that is the positive motivator. So there's no question. I take them every single day.
And what factors would influence your decision to share this information? You have previously spoken about, that there are biases, but how would you handle a disclosure if you're facing the heat of?
My case, I disclosed and went public right away. But my situation is different than many of the listeners today. I was near the end of my Army career. I was forced to retire, and so when I got my diagnosis in November of 2014, I thanked the doctor and I said, "Thank you, doctor. I knew there was something wrong with me, and now I know what it is. You've given me a target with a face on it. It's bipolar disorder. I'm going to own this diagnosis. I am not going to be stigmatized. I'm not going to be ashamed or embarrassed or let anybody, try to push me in a closet. And when I get healthy enough, because I was in terrible depression, when I get healthy enough, I'm going to speak and write and write a book and all this, and which I have. Um, and so I think what I'm doing is good because it's helping to break the stigma and inform and educate people. But my case was different because I was at the end of my Army career. So I had to get out of the Army anyway. I was forced to retire. So nobody could use the bipolar diagnosis and hurt me with it or, push me out of my employment or take away my security clearance. So I think it's very different for a younger person who's at a earlier point in their career. And I know a lot of people say they don't disclose it, they don't want to disclose it because they're worried about stigma, discrimination in the workplace, that it'll somehow come back and hurt them. And I totally understand that, and I totally respect it. That people don't want to disclose it, they want to keep it private, etc. But I will say, since I've been doing this bipolar work, I've met hundreds of people, younger professionals in the business world, in government, in the military, et cetera, who have disclosed their condition, and the employer has not done anything to harm them. They haven't pushed them out, they haven't discriminated against them. And so by disclosing it and being open about it, they are really helping to break the stigma down, because then people in their workplace say, oh, I know Jane. She's fantastic and she's doing a great job. And oh, by the way, she has bipolar disorder. So it makes people have a more positive view of people with this condition.
Because if your employment rights are going to be threatened because of your disclosure, that's a really sad state. But I totally agree with you. It's what's important is to get information first, that what are the rights, and then instead of disclosing, try to make changes in whichever subtle ways which you find are possible. That's great insight, Greg. I think that's very, very valuable advice. And also, because when you said that this other lady who disclosed, but also what happens is that if you're bipolar and you're doing a good job, and like we said, bipolar people sometimes have more energy than the rest of the people, it could be 3 to 4 times more. So then when you see a good job done, and then you say, I'm bipolar, it's almost like saying, hey, it's wonderful, but not that it is, but just to say that there's no problem. It's okay if I'm bipolar. I'm doing my job so well. Supportive environment is also very, very important. What self-care strategies do you recommend for people with this condition? How should they prioritize their self-care to maintain a mental well-being? Uh, what do you think would make things better for them?
Okay, self-care. And I do it every single day, and it's now a routine, so I hardly have to think about it. But, number one, take your medication. Number two, healthy living, plenty of sleep, exercise every day, get out, be around other people, have a mission that drives you forward. Think about your own thinking so that you don't get wrapped around the axle and get into bad habits of thought. Find ways to relax and to reduce stress. Like I love the bell ringing. I'm gonna start doing that all the time now. I know you taught me a new technique. um, and so those are just some of the basics. And I mean, for me, exercise and sleep are two of the most important ones. And then I've got this new mission now with sharing my bipolar story, and it's a great mission, and I love it, and I work hard at it, but I can take it too far and get too intense and spend too much time. So I have to have a way to back away from it and spend time with Maggie and do some fun things and relax and not be so serious about it. And I think that's really, really important. This idea of relaxation and reducing stress, I think, is huge. And I think that's probably something that you maybe do in Indian culture better than in America.
It's important to reflect on what we have learned and how we can apply it in our daily lives.
Called Bipolar General, and the subtitle is My Forever War with Mental Illness. And so it really gets into the journey of recovery and building a new life and how to maintain a happy, healthy new life, which I have, which Anu really brought it out with her excellent questions. But if you go to my website, which is bipolargeneral.com, right there are links to order the book with Barnes and Noble, Amazon, the publisher themselves. And so you can go right to my website, you hit the landing page, and there's a few different ways that you can, click and order the book just like that.
That's great. Thank you, Greg. Let's continue these conversations and raise awareness about the bipolar disorder. All those who are watching and will be watching over separate platforms, open invitation to send in your questions and comments via email. Together, we can create a more inclusive environment for people suffering from mental health issues.